All right, guys, I said I'd do another video on advanced driving technique, and a lot of you wanted setup information. So I'll touch base on it. Like I said in the first video, I'm by no means a setup guru. So we'll touch base on the basic physics of what you're trying to accomplish. So asphalt, guys, I'm not going to be a whole lot of help here. I don't race asphalt. About the only thing I got for you is sway bar. I've talked to a few of those guys, and it seems like they all tie down the left side of the sway bar. Most of us dirt guys don't use a sway bar. We tried tinkering with it a little bit last year in my uncle's car, and I might try it this year. But basically, your tie rod end lengths, you shorten the left side to try to keep the car from rolling over, which is where we're going to start here. This is, body roll. So as you enter the corner, obviously, physics, the car rolls over onto the right side. So basically what you're trying to accomplish is stiffening the right side of the car up to keep it from rolling, because when the car rolls over, it's transferring all the weight onto those tires on the right side, specifically the right front, because our car's obviously engine's in the front, driveline, everything's in the front. So it's onto that right side wheel, and that's what you're trying to prevent or kind of sort of equalize. You're never going to prevent it or really equalize it probably, but you're trying to keep it from rolling over. So you want to stiffen up the right side of the car. Depending on your rule book, you might be able to use race springs. Most of us probably can't. So your next options are to find another stock spring that's heavier, maybe a different version of your car. A sportier version had a heavier spring, or another version of that manufacturer's car has the same diameter spring, but heavier. So you do that on the right side, or spring rubbers. Again, it depends on your rule book. But you're trying to keep that car from rolling over. If you look at the first video, you'll see on the left side of the board are actually my scale numbers from 2019. You can go back and you can peep that and see what my scale numbers are. Now, up here in New York, where I run, we have to weigh 2,600 pounds. So my car is heavy, very heavy. But you're going to see, if you go back and look at that my left front is extremely heavy. Because we're trying to, there's lead up there, basically. I put weight up there because you're trying to keep that car from rolling over. You want to keep the weight on those front tires, especially the left side, to keep the car down so that you have two tires planted on the racetrack to keep you rolling forward. So you can fight this with tires too. That's what guys mean when they talk about stagger, putting bigger tires on the right side of the car to kind of already pitch it to the left so there's less roll to the right. We do that. I run no more than 2 inches. That's a diameter measurement, or sorry, a circumference measurement, not a diameter measurement. So 2 inches in circumference smaller on the left side and then on the right side. I do run a locked transmission in my car. Some guys run LSDs on the smaller tracks. I prefer locked. Asphalt guys probably don't go locked. It's going to be really hard on axles. You're probably going to want to go LSD. But you want that power to both front wheels pulling you forward, especially to get you from center off the corner. What else for a setup? Tires. Camber. The basic physics here for camber is you're tipping this tire because, one, as you go into the corner and the car rolls over, this tire is actually going to flex at the bottom and the sidewall and bring this pad down flat. Is the goal that you're trying to accomplish with camber, is so that as this tire flexes into the corner and as the car rolls over, you're using this whole tread width is what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to get all of that tread down onto the track so that you have a full patch of tread on the track. Now, I see it a lot when I'm traveling around. Guys have these things tipped so far you could walk up them. That's not helping you. It's too much. Maybe you think the car turns better in the corner, but in reality, all you're using is this section over here because you've got it tipped so far. You're not getting your full tread width. The goal is to try to get that tread pattern on the ground in the corners so that the car turns. You want to use the whole patch as much as you can. Now, how you adjust for that, you could use, some guys use temp guns or some type of temperature reader, and they'll actually read the temperatures across the tire to see where it's the hottest, what's making the most contact on the racetrack. The simplest way to do it is if you've got a good tire, a new tire, or you ground a tire, you after you run a few laps, look at your tread pattern, and you can see where it was wearing on the tire. Okay, so if your wear pattern seems strong here, you've got it tipped too far. If you've got wear up here on the sidewall, it's rolling over too far, and you want to tip it in some. And like I said, you're trying to accomplish a full patch in the corner. Okay, that's camber. I don't personally mess too much with caster. I know it makes a difference, but so that's camber. You're fighting body roll, trying to keep the car as flat as possible to keep as much traction as possible. So weight transfer, okay? Like I said, it's kind of all about physics. So as the car enters the corner, everything's rolling to the right. You're trying to keep weight on the left, but you're also trying to keep weight on the front tires. So like I said before, if you put stiffer springs on the right side, it keeps the car more to the left. If you put stagger on the right side, it keeps the car more to the left. I know you asphalt guys are usually limited to what percentage you can have on the left side of the car, so you're going to be forced to scale. You should be scaling anyway. Even you dirt guys should be scaling to get an idea of where your weight is with the driver in the car. But basically, let's say you were to cut your left rear spring and your right front spring and kind of create a teeter-totter between the left front and the right rear. If you have a stiffer spring in the right rear, it's going to be say you add a spring rubber to the right rear, it's going to transfer more weight to the left front. Same thing if you have a stiffer spring in the right rear, it's going to transfer more weight to the left front, and you want that weight up on the left front. So let's say you want to add weight to the left front like I do, put it up there. You're trying to get that left front down on the racetrack because you want both front tires touching the track to get that power to pull you forward. That's what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, so that's going to bring me into we're going to transition from setup over to driving now. All right. I've explained this to a few guys, obviously my teammates, some guys that talk about setup, talk about driving. Different rule books, again, open up things for you. I call this the tightrope. The green area is your happy spot, basically, okay? So, like SCDRA, those guys are allowed to gut a ton out of their cars. I think it's like 2,200 pounds, and it's like 50-pound weight break for Hans and 50-pound weight break for full containment seats. So let's call it like 2,100 pounds. That's pretty light. And they're also allowed to build their engines. So you're trying to find a happy place between power and weight. A power to weight ratio where you can still get traction, okay? So my car has a stock engine. It weighs 2,600 pounds normally. If I go to an SCDRA event, I'll pull some weight out of the right rear. I might get it down to 2,580, 2,590 or something. It's still really heavy. But I still qualify top 20. I still tend to run top 10. And this is kind of why. I'll explain it to you here. Once you take weight out of the car, or let's say once you add horsepower to the car, okay? So let's consider this tightrope your happy place between power and weight, right? When you enter the corner, you're trying to find the happy medium where you still can turn, you still got good forward momentum, and you've got enough power to be fast, right? That's this happy place, okay? So basically what happens is, if the tightrope's wide, it's easy to walk on, right? So as you add horsepower, you're going to remove some of this tightrope. You're going to make that tightrope skinnier, okay? Because you're going to fight more to get traction. It's a little bit skinnier, okay? Now you make the car lighter. It's not going to stick to the track as good. It's a little bit lighter. You've got more horsepower. You're going to make that tightrope even skinnier. Okay, so basically what you're doing is you're making the car harder to drive. So if you're not experienced and first thing you do is you go add a bunch of horsepower and gut the crap out of your car, all you're doing is making it harder for yourself. You just made that tightrope you know, smaller and smaller as you keep going up in horsepower and down in weight. You keep making this tightrope smaller. Whereas in my car, it's heavy, it's low on horsepower, I got a lot more room to play. It's much easier to drive. So yeah, I'm not winning SCDRA races because I straight up don't have enough horsepower. The guys just pull away from me down the straightaway. But I would add horsepower before I removed weight. It'd be one or the other for me. That's a personal preference. Yeah, those guys are faster. They're beating me. Their cars are light. They've got significantly more power than me. But again, my tightrope's a lot bigger, okay? I've got more room to play on that tightrope. It's a little bit easier to drive. I've got more traction because I just don't have the power really to I mean, I can overpower it, but I'm not blowing the tires off it just by whacking the throttle a little bit. So that's a simple explanation of what's going to happen as you add horsepower and take weight out of the car. Okay, your driving skills better be up to par as you're adding that stuff. If it's your first year, I would suggest adding no horsepower and don't gut your car all the way down. One, gutting your car all the way down is definitely making it less safe because you're relying completely on the cage to protect you, which is, I mean, if the cage is built right, you're fine, but it's a unibody car and it was built with structure to crumple to protect the driver. It was built that way. It was engineered that way. I don't gut my cars down that far. I leave a lot of the inside structures in the car. Again, personal preference. So that's just a transition to go from setup to driving, okay? So now, a lot of us race the same track weekly. So you run with the same guys every week. Now, as you're running with these same guys every week, you should be taking notes to their driving style. Whether they're all over the racetrack, if they're consistent, same line, they run a solid line, whether or not you can spook them, if they're going to give you a hard time when you pass them. Basically what I'm trying to say is you read those people and remember. The tip, basically like their poker face, okay? They have tells. So those people that you race with every week, you know what they're going to do for the most part. You have an idea. So maybe somebody's really hard to get by, but if you show them the nose going into the corner, they will inevitably overdrive the next corner to try to go faster to keep you from passing them. So maybe your best option is to show them the nose and then let them overdrive the next corner and just drive by them. So that's an option. I mean, all people are different. Some guys can't help it. They don't even know they're doing it, that they're overdriving the car in the next corner. You read these people, you remember their driving styles, and you use that to your advantage, okay? Nose it in, let them get by. If you know this person is going to chop you because that's just how they drive, it's kind of the same idea. Set them up, okay? If you know they're going to come down off the corner and try to block you down the straightaway, get in there. Let's say get in there going into 1 and 2, show them the nose, ease out of it, let them come down, and when you go into the next corner, set it up so that you have a high exit, okay? Get in there nice and high so that when you come out of 4, they're darting down the track to block you, and they just open the top lane, and now you're up there going into 1 and 2, and you can pass them on the high side, okay? This is stuff you have to learn with the other drivers of who's going there, okay? Which brings me back to YouTube. If you're going to a track you're not familiar with, hopefully you can find videos from that track. You should be watching those videos before you go to a new racetrack. You're going to get all kinds of information. One, you're going to know who's fast before you get there. You're going to see where they're running on the racetrack most of the time, where that fast line is, depending on track condition, obviously. And you're also going to kind of see who the squirrels are, who's kind of all over the racetrack, who you need to worry about. Do that research before you go. You don't want to go in blind. If you can't find videos, so be it. You're going in blind. You know, pay attention at hot laps and heat races. If you can watch a heat race or something before you get into your car, you know, pay attention, watch who's doing what. See what else here. All right, transitions. So you've done your research. You know the guys you're racing with. You've got an idea of how they're going to go around the corner. So in the first video, we talked about momentum. You're driving a 4-cylinder. You don't want to choke this thing down. You want to keep it up. You want to keep it rolling. So we talked about entering high and staying high, okay? Keeping a nice sweeping corner to keep your speed up. So basically what you're doing here is there's a lot going on while you're racing. You have a lot to calculate in your brain. And the more you practice it, the more it'll almost become subconscious. Like I don't consciously think about this stuff while I'm driving. At this point, I've been doing it long enough. It kind of just comes naturally. You need to have a plan before you get there. You know, like I say, watch down the racetrack to see what's going on down there. Cars that are next to you, you should not be looking at them, okay? A lot of people will naturally head towards something if they look at it. They're there. You know they're there. You have them in your peripheral vision. Stay in your lane. Don't be blocking. This is how accidents happen. This is why races go with a million cautions. Don't be blocking. I mean, if it's a big money to win race, and you've got 5 laps left, and you guys want to battle it out, rub fenders, don't wreck each other, but, you know, make it tight so it's hard for them to get by. That's fine. You want to, you know, if they're under you and you want to hold them down a little bit and try to scrub off some of their speed, but don't be running into each other. Plain and simple. It gives you a bad reputation, and those guys, if it's weekly, they're going to stop giving you space. If you're driving rough and you're running into people, they're just going to straight up stop giving you space. Plain and simple. If they were nice to you for 2 weeks and you keep running into the side of their car because you're trying to hold them down on the racetrack or you're trying to push them up on the racetrack, respect each other. That's what I'm trying to say, okay? If you don't give them respect, they're not going to give you respect. Plain and simple. You know, this year might start out nice and you guys are driving through the corner side by side. Everybody's happy. But if you start choking these guys down, you start pushing around, they're not going to give you space. You come diving in underneath them, they're going to do it to you. So don't be getting upset if you're doing it and some people start doing it back to you, okay? Respect each other out there. Respect each other's equipment. You've all put time and money into this stuff. So we're just going to start with that. There's no reason for you to be running into people. I get rubbins racing. Sometimes we make contact. I make mistakes too. I've made contact with guys on the racetrack. It happens. But you shouldn't be using guys to make the corner on a regular basis. I see it all the time in the videos. I'm sorry, I see it a lot. SCDRA, you guys are driving all over each other a lot. A lot. Tracks, this comes to you too. A lot of you guys should be using that black flag, even if you're rolling it up and pointing at people. We should not be driving all over each other out there. I get rubbing, I get, you know, touching each other, a little bit of rubs here and there, but dumping dudes, turning guys, some of this comes down to blocking. You should not be running into each other. This is not a demolition derby, and it really makes us look bad. I got off on a little rant there. Let's get back to driving. Anyways, so before you come up to a car, you're going to have a plan ahead of time, okay? If you know this person that you're coming up on, you might have an idea of where they're going to be, if they're going to hold their line, etc. Track conditions. You have to take all this stuff into account as you're approaching a vehicle. Number 1, you don't want to dart out of line. You don't want to be right behind them and then dart out of line, because that dart, that sharp turn of the wheels is scrubbing off speed. Be ready for it ahead of time. So, as you're coming up to the corner, if you're coming up on the car here, all right, and you're going to come in low, you obviously want to keep up your momentum and keep the car going fast. So as you enter here, 1, you better make sure you have enough speed if you're going to do this. But you're going to enter and try to roll this car back up to the top of the racetrack. You better have enough speed to clear them. If not, you need to be aware that they're there on the exit, and you need to stay down on the racetrack. You might complete the pass, you might not. But you're trying to roll through the corner and keep the momentum up, all right? Now, if you're gaining on somebody fast enough that you think you're going to need to pass them on corner exit, most likely they're probably going to be up here, okay? So what you're going to do, okay, is you're going to enter high over here. You're going to roll the top and slowly and smoothly make the transition down to make the pass on the exit. Keep that momentum up. Don't dart. Another way to cause an accident is to dart out of line. So, middle of the corner. You've got to run. You made a good entry. Same thing. Okay? You need to make this transition. Most likely if they're in the middle of the corner, unless they're going really slow, you're just going to be next to them on the exit. That being said, when you get to the next corner, if you're side by side, if you're up in the top 5, most likely these guys are going to be pretty close to the same speed as you. When you get to the next corner, you're probably going to be side by side. You don't know what this guy's going to do, but most likely he's going to stay on this outside path if you're there. You need to adjust your speed. You don't want to be running into this guy. You could upset both of you. You could cut down a tire. You need 4 tires to finish the race. Okay, you might not need the left rear, but it helps. You need to adjust your speed to hold this line. You might not complete the pass. It might take you 4 or 5 laps to complete the pass. You might be driving side by side with each other. You need to adjust your speed, throttle control, braking, whatever you got to do. You don't need to be running into each other, okay? It's basically you're keeping that momentum up and trying to make that pass without causing a wreck on the racetrack. It's all about transition, all right? Keep the momentum up, plan beforehand. You always got to plan ahead. Like I said, if you're fixated, in the first video I said don't fixate on that back bumper. If you're fixated on the back bumper of that car, you're not keeping that momentum. You don't have that transition of speed through the corner to keep that thing rolling. All right. So on the straightaways, obviously, if you're significantly faster, you're going to get out of line and try to pass them. But it's kind of the same deal like I talked about on corner entry. If you've got enough speed to clear them, then transition towards the top of the racetrack and get up there and keep that momentum, okay? What you definitely don't want to do is come in low, go high, come out low. Don't dime in the corner, okay? That's going to cause an accident because everybody else is sweeping the corner, like I said before. So even if you came in low and there's cars above you and you have to choke this, if this guy comes diving down, he's chopping down. You got to pay attention, okay? Don't dime in the corner. One, it's not fast, okay? And, I mean, rear-wheel drive guys will do stuff like this because they can pitch the car with the back. We can't really do it, but that's going to cause an accident. That's not holding your line, all right? Definitely don't do that. I mean, if there's a guy up top here and you dime in the corner, you're going to end up hitting him. Say he's right here. You're going to end up hitting him right in the door because you came in too hot, and then you're going to transition down the racetrack. So that's not fast. That's not going to get you through the corner. You need to work on the sweep, and you always have to be conscious of where the other cars on the racetrack are. Don't just go bombing in there. All right? The stuff plays a role. You know, you have a whole season of racing with these guys if this is your home track. Don't be going out there and making yourself a bad reputation right away because they're not going to, the veterans especially are not going to give you leeway. You know, they're not going to be nice to you and give you space. Okay, for the most part, a lot of guys, we respect each other out there. We try to give each other space. Be conscious of what your car is capable of, whether or not it's going to stick when you throw it in that corner or if it's going to slide up the racetrack. Be conscious of what your car is capable of. Be conscious of what the track conditions are. Okay. What am I missing here? I don't know what I'm missing. You can throw it in the comments down below and maybe I'll try to answer it for you. We're not going fast enough for drafting for the most part. I mean, some of the bigger tracks, but still I doubt we're not going fast enough for drafting. It's not even a thing. That's NASCAR. This is dirt track racing. They're 4 cylinders. It's just probably not going to happen. Maybe the asphalt guys can attest to that on some of their bigger tracks that they race. You might be able to do that, but probably not. So we touched on camber, kind of explained the physics involved with tires, why we're doing that. We touched on spring rates, not really spring rates, but stiffer springs on the right side, trying to keep that car from rolling over on the body, trying to keep your traction on your front tires, specifically that left front. Your right front's going to have traction. Everything's rolling over onto it. So that's helping you turn. Tire pressures. I didn't really touch on tire pressures. Everybody kind of has a different idea about that. Some places allow bead locks, some don't. I'm personally a big proponent of bead locks. I think it's a great idea. I run a lot lower tire pressures than most people. Even without a bead lock, I'll run a tube in the tire on the right front, and I'll still run it anywhere from 16 to 18 probably PSI, which is way lower than most people. But again, I'm paying attention to my tread wear, like I was talking about with the camber. I don't really run camber usually. with the stagger in the car, I find that most of the time I'm not running on the sidewall, so I don't really worry about it. A lot of guys who don't run bead locks will run a lot higher tire pressures in the 20s, even up to the 30s sometimes. You want the car to turn. It's what you're trying to accomplish, to get it to turn the corner. If it's still turning the corner with that much air in it, then awesome, good for you. If you can be fast. I mean, obviously a harder tire is probably going to roll better on the straightaways, help with momentum. But it's personal preference, driver preference. You want the car to turn, handle. Basically, when it comes to setup, it's all about physics. It's all about what the car does on the racetrack, where the weight is transferring front to back and side to side, like I talked about with the teeter-totter on the right rear and the left front. You're trying to transfer that weight. You know, if you go bigger in the right rear, it transfers it to the left front. Tires, harder springs, spring rubbers in the right rear. You can make your adjustments depending on your rules there. Like I said, some tracks allow race springs. Most places I go do not allow race springs. I run all stock stuff. Make adjustments with spring rubbers and cutting springs. I don't heat anything because it never repeats itself if you try to heat springs. So spring rubbers and cutting your springs is kind of a lot of you's only option. You're not gonna have race springs for the most part. Like I said, manufacturer differences in vehicles for springs. You know, some models, SS model versus a base model, might have a different ratio spring you can try. Shocks. Most places don't allow adjustable shocks. You have to run a stock shock, but again, same kind of theory. Your SS model versus your base model might have a different shock. Look at your part numbers, try them. Shocks aren't super expensive. Different tracks may allow you different options as far as tires. Some tracks hold you to tread wear. Obviously, a lower tread wear is going to be a softer tire. A softer tire is probably going to grip the track better, not going to last as long. Some tracks allow race tires where you'll be able to choose from different compounds. Obviously, again, a softer tire is going to grip better, but not going to last as long. Probably limiting you to size with a race tire as to what options you can use. And size change in tire will change your gearing. That comes into play for setup too. You're going to want to be in a certain RPM range. With the transmission that I run, I tend to try to run the same transmission everywhere, and I just adjust tire size. So if you're going to a bigger track, you're going to put on a bigger tire to keep the RPMs in the range that you're looking for. If you go to a very small track like a bull ring, you'll go down a size in tire to keep the RPMs where you want them. You might, depending on how drastically, you might have to change the transmission. You might have to run third gear. I normally run second gear. Independent rear suspension, guys. Hondas, for the most part, I don't know. I don't race independent rear suspension. It is different. I've driven one before. They do tend to handle and track the corner a little bit differently as far as setup goes. Premise is still basically the same physics-wise, body roll, trying to keep weight on the left front. It's still the same premise, but the cars will handle a little bit differently. Same thing with LSD versus locked. The car is going to handle differently. It'll probably turn a little bit better with an LSD, but you're not going to have as good of forward bite, in my opinion, as you're going to have with locked. So you'll have to adjust your driving style from a locked tranny to an LSD tranny. Obviously, open trans, same thing. I mean, open, you're only using one wheel for the most part until those front wheels are straight again, and then you'll get some more forward bite. But your driving style needs to be adjusted for whatever you're running for your transmission setup. Again, be aware of who's around you. Give that respect to the other drivers that are out there. It's important. Read the people that you race with every week. Get an idea of where they are, how they're all over the racetrack, that they're going to overdrive the car. We all deal with dirty drivers. Some of them are doing it on purpose. Some of them are just making mistakes. Some of them aren't doing it on purpose. So we get heated, we get hot. Some people, like I said, you show them the nose, they start overdriving the car, and they get into you. They're not doing it on purpose. They don't even realize probably that they're overdriving the car until after they do it. You have to be ready for that. You should be reading the other drivers on the racetrack. I know it's a lot, especially when you're a new driver. You're just trying to get out there and get a feel for the car and a feel for the track and learn that stuff. And meanwhile, you've got all this other stuff going on. It's chaotic, okay? There's a ton of stuff going on. Your brain's trying to process it. But like I said, the more you do it, the more you think about this stuff and you consciously, you know, I'm planting the seed basically is what I'm doing. Letting it grow in you. So keep this stuff in mind while you're out there, and eventually the more you do it, it'll just get to be natural, okay? Cars will come up next to you and you won't even turn your head and look at them. And I'm telling you, don't turn your head and look at them, because most likely, and I think for most people, when they're driving down the road and they look at something, they tend to fade that way. Obviously some more than others. But if you're looking at that person, most likely you're going to start heading towards them. It's just like fixating on the back bumper of the car in front of you. You tend to go where that person goes. So if you turn and you look at them, you may not even realize you're chopping, but you're coming down that racetrack. If you're making contact with somebody on the straightaway, most likely it's probably you. I mean, they might be hitting you on purpose, but most likely, majority of the time, you're probably fading up or down the racetrack. Okay? Eyes forward. You worry about where you're going. Okay? If there's a car next to you that you can see out of your peripheral vision, or usually you can hear them, okay? I purposely keep my car quiet. I run a glass pack with a turn down away from me so that I can hear the cars around me. Use everything you got, okay? So you know they're there, okay? Peripheral vision, you see them. You don't need to look at them, okay? You see them. They're there, okay? You see their car, whatever side it is. You worry about where you're going. You adjust your path so that you guys don't run into each other. Like I said before, you got to have 4 tires to finish the race. Give or take that left rear, you know. You could probably make it with a flat. It's going to scrub off a little bit of speed, but I've done it. You got to keep the tires under the car. Got to have them there. So you don't want to be rubbing with these guys, okay? I get it. It happens. We rub. You're not going to win it on the first lap either, okay? Keep the tires under the car. Those last 5 laps are what matters. You need to get yourself into a position to actually make a run on those last 5 laps, especially on these big races where we're doing 7,500 laps or more. Personally, I think that's silly to try to go that long. You're asking a lot out of the car, and usually, if any of you have been to these races, they'll start with, you know, high 20s, low 30s number of cars, and they'll finish with like 9. It's my opinion, okay? My opinion, it's too much. I'll do it. I'll go do it. I'll try to get that big money, but what fun is that? You're taking half the field out. Some of it's mechanical failure. A lot of it is contact. A lot of it is people making contact, cutting tires down, breaking suspension parts, etc. I don't know. I guess it's part of the excitement going that far, but keep that in mind too as a driver. If you're going that far, you got that many laps, okay? You want to pass. You're out there racing. You're having a good time. Obviously, you're trying to make up room and you've got to stay conscious of what you're doing. Don't get fixated. Don't look at the cars next to you. Stay conscious. I've got 75 laps. I need to survive 75 laps, okay? Those first 40 laps don't mean garbage. You just need to survive. Get there. Get to that point, and then you can start worrying about picking some cars off. Just stay easy, stay out of trouble, let the other guys run into each other and take their equipment out, let them push the car too hard and run their tires down and blow up their motors and break their transmissions. Let them do that. You just stay in your line, keep the car clean, and get to those last 10, 15 laps. And then you can start picking them off, working your way up. There's going to be cautions. It's that many laps. Cars are going to break. There's going to be oil on the track. There's going to be broken stuff. Keep it in your head. Hey, I need to make it to the end to get that money, to get a good finish. Take it easy. Keep the car clean. Make it to the last. For me, I just want to make it to the last 10 laps. In the last 10 laps, you're almost definitely in those big races going to have a caution that's going to bunch the field back up. Now you can start making your moves and start working your way up. You are not, this is like iRacing for you guys at iRace. You're not going to win it on the first lap. Stop wrecking everybody. Okay? So, that's the basics. I guess it's advanced technique a little bit. It doesn't really change that much from starting. Like, you're trying to keep the momentum up. You're trying to keep the car rolling. Keep it going. If you want a sneak peek at my weights, you go back to that first video, look at the left side of the board. It's obviously changed a little bit since then. I've probably moved more weight to the left front. to get that tire to bite. This year, I might try that sway bar trick, tying down the left side just to see what it'll do. This goes for bigger tracks as well. Maybe even more important on bigger tracks, keeping that momentum up, keeping that thing rolling, because you're really up there, and a small mistake will cost you more probably on a bigger track than it will a small track. Where a small bull ring, you've got a little more leeway. Usually the bull rings are a lot rougher on equipment, but mistakes are a little bit easier to recover on a bull ring, a little smaller track. I think that's it, guys. Like I said, if I missed something, or if you've got a question, specific question, you can leave it in the comments, or you can shoot me a message. I'll do my best to answer it for you. Explain the physics to it, or why we do things. Tightrope. Remember the tightrope. You got to keep that thing in that happy place in order to run up front and win. You got to keep the tires under the car. Keep it clean. Don't be running into each other. This isn't super technical, is it? I mean, it's advanced technique, but it's not really anything special. Kind of common sense, but you don't really think about it when you're out there. You get in the moment and you get racing, and it's exciting, and your heart's pumping, and it's hard to focus, but you got to focus, okay? You know, you've heard stories of guys falling asleep in the lineup shoot, and you think to yourself, how are they falling? I do it all the time. I don't really fall asleep, but I'm usually sitting there with my eyes closed, you know, trying to calm myself and get in the zone. Guys will be standing outside their car watching the races, and they jump in right before we go out. I don't do that. I'm in my car with my helmet on, strapped in, as long as it's not 900 degrees outside, and I'm focusing, okay? I'm just getting myself in the zone. Maybe, you know, meditating or whatever works for you. Kind of get yourself in the zone so that you can focus when you go out there, okay? I don't drink alcohol the night before we go racing. That's just me. I've found that I don't function as good if I went out drinking the night before. Even if I got a good night's sleep. I don't know. Can't focus. I'll drive right off the end of the racetrack. So that's me. Maybe some of you think I'm crazy for not drinking the night before. I don't drink the night before a race. All right, well, I hope that helps. Good luck out there this year. It's actually New Year's Day right now, 2022. We're going to need all the luck we can get. So good luck out there, guys and girls. Have fun.